Okay, let's go ahead and start. Morning, everybody. This is the Community and Economic Development Committee. Mandy?
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy is on her way. Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar? Ms. Salatel?
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go around and introduce ourselves, and we can end with Bob. Okay, start over here. I guess with Dean.
Dean Gates, Council.
Chris Schutte, Director of Economic Community Development.
Ryan Yale, Planning Department.
Mandy Honest, Clerk's Office.
Jan Foster, Clerk's Office. Angelica Peterson, Alaska Sense.
Aaron Ralph, Alaska Campus. John Redden, Great Northern Campus.
Ron Thompson, Stewart, Programming Engineer.
Michelle McNulty, Planning Director.
Dave Whitfield, Planning.
I'm Bob Dole, the building official. Also, I'm giving you your safety brief for this building, and this is a new emphasis item for folks that work out here when we have public groups and may not always live in this building like we do. The event the fire alarm goes off or we otherwise need to quickly leave the building, we'll go out that door, turn right, go out that door, then go out and gather, not in the driveway, but in the parking lot out front by Elmore, but not in the driveway where the fire trucks and emergency vehicles may have to go. In the event that exit is blocked, we'll go out, turn left, go straight down by the training room, go out that way and gather in that same area out by Elmore. In the event there's an earthquake, again, that's kind of a recent emphasis item. So it is drop, get down, try to get as far as you can under the table, which without getting a concussion running into those kickboards in front. Cover your head and hold on to something for stability. Inside the building, a message will be going out at 10:17, and all the folks not in this room will be participating at this time. It's, I think, the chair's call whether or not we at least talk to or rehearse these things at that time, or we just continue with the meeting.
I think it would be not much of a team effort if we did not get underneath the table or something. It could happen to any of us anytime. We should be ready for it. So is that would be the drill, though? It's not bolt out the door.
No, for an earthquake, the object is not to be where things are going to fall on you with collapsing ceilings or or the glass coming out or other things, but to get under the table or something else that's mostly structurally sound. And I would note for folks on that side, there's another table behind you that might have a little more space if you can get to it.
Okay, and I'm going to clarify. So you're saying if this is blocked, we go through the training room and out that door?
Or the one next to it, whichever one's quicker.
There's one right next to the training room?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They're marked. They have
exit signs.
And I'm Eugene Carl Haven, I represent myself.
Thank you.
What a governor watch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so first item is quarterly marijuana facility compliance report, which should be, who's doing that?
I think Jack Frost is on his way.
He's on his way. Okay, so we can wait on that. So we have from Alaska Sense. So you're not on the agenda, but you're on that compliance report. Is that why you would be here then? I just want to make sure we're not wasting your time.
Yes. I will go track down Jack.
Okay. Do you want us to wait?
I think I should be back within 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I will defer to.
Is there any changes to the agenda? We've got the
I'm listening. I
okay.
promise.
Defining homeless shelters. Maybe we can buy some time because I put it on there because it was apparently your request. I don't know if we have much time to go through it, but maybe get an idea of what your goals are with that.
Sure.
Share that. So can we change the order of the day?
Move to change the order of the day. D ahead of A.
Got that, Chris?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna we have defining homeless shelters on here, and that's something a broader thing we're working on. And Megan asked for, so I just wanted to flesh that out a bit. We actually have it on our agenda for the next meeting too, in case it's something we want to continue with.
So I can provide a little bit of background. Working on a set of ordinances that would be in Title 21 and Title 16, but the Title 21 piece here would be the use categories for homeless shelters, including day shelter, which isn't currently defined in code. And then if we were, the discussion as well is should, depending on how those definitions shake out, should they be allowed in other zoning districts besides PLI, public land institutions, if I said that right. So that will take some Title 21 changes in so that'll be, Chris Judy actually drew me a great diagram. That'll be the land portion, and then we'll work on also companion ordinances under Title 16, which will be what happens in the building.
So we have 17, 16, and 21?
It's 16 and 21.
Oh, 16 and 21.
Yeah.
16 is what?
16 is health.
Public health.
Public
Yeah.
health. Okay, do you have that diagram? What's that diagram?
Through the chair, no, we're actually not prepared to
No,
to
it's
speak
fine.
on that today, but I will follow what she said by simply saying the diagram, the illustration really is 100% stolen from the process we use for marijuana special land use permits, which has both a licensing component, which lives in Title 10, and then the land use components, which live in Title 21.
Okay.
Title 10 wasn't the appropriate place for licensing homeless shelters, but Title 21 remains the appropriate place for the land use side.
Yeah, okay, well, that's interesting. And I was reading, the reason I was going through Portland's code and some of the stuff they did, and they have like mass shelter, they use some different phrasing, but so other people have dealt with this if we look at it. Any thoughts, Michelle? Have you been
No,
involved with this?
we actually met with Meg about 2 months ago and kind of mapped this out. She came to the planning department to talk to us about different ways that we might be able to tackle this, and kind of came up with a hybrid approach that was similar to what people are already used to, so we're not introducing a new type of permitting, but it has a little more robust enforcement with the licensing if we do it that way versus, I think, what's been perceived with the conditional use permits.
Okay. Oh, good. So,
And it also allows, for a renewal mechanism so that we can check in.
okay. So, okay, I guess that's what I was looking for, is just got to see the lay of the land. So, at the next meeting, we've left it tentatively on that. Is that something, when is that, the 30th?
Well, through the chair, we've kind of been waiting to see what happens on the licensing side so that we, because the two are so related, are there going to be multiple license types that then tie into a particular use category? Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
Et cetera. But we can, offline, we can connect with Assembly Member Zalatel and be prepared to at least start discussions on the land use side if the licensing side's not done in time for the next meeting.
Okay, so licensing side done. So you're writing something up that would describe that?
I am not. I have to, I think,
That
I'm
would be
going to be a
Title
little bit
16.
ignorant in this one, is it?
Yeah, that would be the
Tasha?
Title 16 and working with the health department.
Health
So, but I think the two, I think we can move forward with a little bit on the Title 21 in terms of working on the land use definitions, because that's where the expertise lies, particularly around day shelter, which I think is going to be an interesting and possibly difficult one to work on, as well as talking about the mechanics of the process, because I think that it will really inform folks about how we envision it moving forward, and then the other would be the substantive pieces that apply that for the evaluation.
So from planning department's perspective, we will not be prepared to speak to that at the next
Okay.
CEC.
Okay, so we won't have that on the agenda then. And because we want you to be ready, and so well, but also I know people are coming because that's on the agenda. We don't want people coming so that we have this light conversation. When do you think, Debbie?
I think we could have staff on it. Maybe a meeting in December. Just
December.
given what we're currently working on.
Okay, so Mandy, you want to just pencil that in and then just let us know earlier or later? Does that work, Mandy?
Sure.
So the Title 16, are we going to keep those separate, or can we?
It'll go as one full package of ordinances, is the vision to go together.
In 16, you're going to deal with it with the health committee, and then set 21 here, or are we going to deal with it all here?
Probably deal with Title 16 either in the health committee or the committee on homelessness.
Oh, okay.
And through the chair, just a quick correction. The Title 21 changes do have to go through the standard Title 21 text edit process, meaning it's got to go through public review, through the Planning and Zoning Commission, et cetera. So there will be a disconnect at some point where they do proceed at different speeds, I guess. But we can work on them together absolutely as a package.
So with that procedure, we could have something largely finished at the assembly level, then we hand it off to Planning and Zoning Commission.
Correct.
right?
Yes,
Set
much
the
like we
agenda,
did
right?
with the on-site consumption and other marijuana Title 21 changes.
Okay. Good, thanks. I look forward to it. All right, so moving back, I see Jack is here somewhere.
Right here.
Do you want to give us the compliance report?
The only actions we have here in recent history are from the Farmer Jack, the last event we have on the report.
Can you sit up here because we're recording and say your name, please?
For the record, I'm Jack Frost, Chief Code Enforcement. So we're looking at our marijuana facility violation summary for July through September. Amoco's, a self-explanatory municipalities. Reports are we had at Farmer Jack's cultivation some issues. They now have a CCO and in operation, and then we have the Alaska Scents violations in August and September. And we're scheduled for hearing for the 6 violations you see on the top yesterday, but between the parties we mutually agreed that they pay the fines and move forward from there.
Okay.
So a hearing was not necessary, and that's it was disposed of under Title 14.
And this is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't see that there's violations since September, so if there was some sort of a problem, they seem to have gotten it fixed. Is that correct?
We have, I don't know how many more, maybe 4 more odor violations that we've confirmed that we haven't moved forward with. We've got continuing complaints at least once a week from the public that we have not followed up on.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, and this is just July through September that are
Correct.
active. So there may be some that, we have NOVs prior to that for maybe other
Yeah, there are
companies.
from earlier this week and then last week as well.
But for just, with industry-wide, not just,
Sorry?
just industry-wide. This is just for July, August, September.
Correct.
That's our quarter, right, okay. Okay, and then, all right. Ms. Warden, you wanted to speak, could you, so you're welcome to speak, say your name so for the recording.
Do I have to sit here?
If it's helpful, if you would. And I think it'd be good to be brief because I think some of this will come up tomorrow in the
Right.
discussion.
So I'm really a snotty warden with Canada's. This is really, very, very nerve-wracking for me. I'm not good at this. But I want to say, I paid yesterday the $1,500 fine for the previous, odor issue. My understanding from the last meeting that we have is that the Assembly extended 3 more months for me to work on this issue. And so I understand you're getting complaints, which I don't understand why. I mean, I understand why, but I am working on fixing the problem. I already bought the equipment. I am working closely with Ron Thompson and Steve Killen. I'm sorry. It's gonna happen. It's just it's a step that I'm doing. You guys gave me the opportunity to do it, and I'm rushing through it as fast as I can in order to achieve that at the end of the time limit I was given. So this is my say. But can I say something unrelated to this real quick, like 2 seconds?
Sure.
I just want to apologize for the emotional outburst from the last meeting that I had. And I want to say that at the end of the day, I want to be a good operator. I'm trying my best and hardest. And whatever the outcome is going to be, I am going to strive to be a good operator. Nothing is going to change. I just need time and help. So I really apologize for this.
All right, thank you. Okay, any comments on that?
I have a question.
Yeah, Meg?
Thank you. So when there's repeat odor complaints, I mean, what's the how long do we keep working with them? What's the plan? Because I've gotten a few I've actually smelled odor
Right.
outside this facility traveling down Tudor Road, so I'm kind of curious what the plan is.
I think maybe we need to look at code amendments to be able to address it more. I haven't talked with the director about it yet, but there might be some tweaks we need to do to make more of an impact on repeat offenders, so we have more tools. Because currently, all we do is go back to the hearing officer, and it's essentially a cost of doing business, $250 a day, in my opinion. So I think we need to look at maybe other ways, other tools we can have.
The cost of paying the fines is less than the cost of fixing it. Is that what we're hearing?
I don't. From our perspective, what we're looking at is there odor or is there not? I mean, I keep it that simple. Not talking about character or mechanics or anything else. Either the public's impacted by the odor or it's not. So I'm trying to dodge the question, just trying to keep the focus to where we are in the enforcement world.
All right, thank you.
But similar to what we did maybe in the garbage handling ordinance, there's a graduated fine schedule, maybe something of that nature where it just becomes, or maybe at some point there's even a point where you can post a stop work order until it gets this under control. I know we have lots of businesses around town, and there's just a very, very few that we have repeated visits and complaints from. So just.
All right, good. Thank you. That's important. Bob?
Hi, Bob Dole, building official for the municipality of Anchorage. Since the closeout of that report, we have 7 other days with odor issues that were validated by land use enforcement officers. We're currently evaluating how those are going to be pursued. It is pretty much a static set fee in terms of the enforcement side. I am meeting with Ron Thompson on behalf of Alaska Sense at 11 o'clock to talk about the building side in terms of what can be done. These are largely Title 23 issues in terms of the building not able to contain the odor within the building itself. Ron had an idea that in a plan that was put forward in May in a permit, and we want to examine what we can do to go forward at this point within the building code to see how this can be expeditiously resolved. But right now, we just have to sit down and look at it because the building isn't doing what it intended to for this sort of occupancy, i.e. not have the odor going beyond the property line. There's also another large group of complainants who have contacted me in the work center right behind her on the city side, that in the Muni building there too, that we need to address the concerns of. So we're sitting down to see what we can do to resolve this from a construction point at 11.
So you're referring to our vehicle maintenance shop there. So they're right there. So they're smelling it a lot. So you hear it from
Yes,
them.
and that's been strongly brought to my attention.
For the record, Assemblywoman Kennedy has joined us. Welcome. Glad you joined us.
I couldn't speak.
So are there some buildings that simply can't contain their odor? And they're just by design, they're just a bad choice?
I can answer that quick. As a mechanical engineer, I mean, we have this same
That's
problem.
Ron Thompson.
Sorry, Ron Thompson. I designed a fix for this in April. The problem was it's 3 different mechanical systems in that building. What they have, I fixed at that time. My design was going to fix 2 of them, and the recommendation was until we did the fix, turn off the ventilation system that's there because it's not capable of being filtered enough. There's almost no building that can't be solved. I mean, it's just money that it takes to do some of these things. Danish Gardens was one that was very similar. Multiple complaints. I redid a design, done, gone, no complaints at all. So, I mean, there's a way to solve them. It's how to get there. In this one, I had been brought in to look at the grow area and the smells going out the back of the building. The problem ends up being is that system hasn't been installed, but it was designed, but they have 2 HRV systems that are also in the front. And those HRV systems are set up because they're mandated by code to bring outside fresh air in. But when they do that, they crisscross with the exhaust, so they heat that air going out. and that air's dumping out all the way, like 2 or 3 openings on the front of the building. And if you walk up that step, obviously the filtration on that isn't working. The new design that I just got approved last week has filtration on all of it. It brings in a lot more filters that I've been successful using. The ones that they have in there are known, they're just kind of like built boxes from scratch and a filter put in, and I think the air's going around those filters. The new ones that we put in are full can, built from the factory with the right type of charcoal that works on it. So there's, believe me, it's not like every time the first design is a fix. We may have to tweak it again after we get that one installed because there's the other chance, like at Danish Garden, I added ozone generators as well on the exhaust. The ozone generation is a chemical reaction with the smells that kills it. And so we're working toward, she had a new grower come in. He said he's been successful in the lower 48 doing what we designed on this one. And so we're going to put that in, and I took care of the 2 HRVs and the grow room scenario. Once that's installed, I think it'll solve the problem. But if not, we will add ozone generation to that once we get operating for a week, see if it worked. If it doesn't, then we add the ozone. Now the ozone generator is a lot more expensive, a lot more things, but there is always ways to get there, but you don't always need those techniques if that makes sense. So the scenario here, we're kind of in a little catch-22. We have a change order for the site. That's another issue. There was a site that didn't take care of the site. Well, the site wasn't fixed because it couldn't be fixed. The original design that was approved was actually, it was approved correctly, but it was drawn on paper not like it really existed, if that makes sense. So it was kind of I would just say the drawings didn't quite reflect exactly the size of this property, so therefore there were problems. We went through that issue, got that solved. Steve did a whole design on the site. So we have an approved site, completely done. Change order has been approved and paid for, but we can't get that issued. And so that's where the catch-22 comes. We can't get that change order so she can do the work because it's being held up and pending this access agreement that you guys will be dealing with on November 5th with regard to, in the backside, on the north side by Bering Street, there's an agreement that Robin Ward has been working to do an additional access agreement. Initially, it was thought that it had to be done to get the code, to meet the code, but it doesn't. But it works and it makes sense and it's a good neighborly thing to do on what's going on. But that prevents her from getting a true change order, which means we're doing the work, she's getting ready to pour the sidewalk and do these things, but it's not really legally permanent. I mean, it's approved and done, but yet it hasn't been executed and issued to us. So, you know, the contractors are kind of questioning her, saying, wait a second, you don't have this change order for this work. And it's like we're saying, yes, we do. They said we could proceed, but we really don't because of this agreement. So there's some complexities there that's what I'm meeting Bob to talk about, that Bob probably wasn't aware that this change order was approved and it's just sitting in the folder waiting. There's just some pieces to it that are a little bit complex, but at the same time, I've talked to Smotty. She needs to make progress in moving towards something. And so that's what this meeting is about, is we have everything approved, we're ready to go, now it needs to be executed, and we just need a little bit of time because I think the CCO runs out in 2 weeks, and we need a little bit more time to keep it legal while we do these fixes. Because my mechanical design that was approved last week is, I mean, most equipment is 6 to 8 weeks procurement to get them in town. So we're not even going to be able to get those fans and those filters in town until the end of November, and then it'll be installed. But we need a little bit of time to do that. We don't need till next summer. I think that was one question that was asked. But we can get toward this and get this thing moving with her commitment to getting it done. I think
well, I think you're sitting next to the person who can make that happen.
Mr. Chair, we'll meet after this. I would note, though, that the original CCO extension was from August of 18 to the end of August of 19. Another 60 days was appended to that. So we're 14 months into extensions with known problems here that are having impacts on the community. We also have an administrative hearing officer directive from last fall, I can't think of the exact date of that, which was to fix the odor issue. So
August 22nd of 2018.
what he said. So I think a lot of time has passed without much progress. So we're going to have to look at that. Also, in terms of the CCO extensions, it's getting into a problematic area of our administrative code that we need to just go through. So Ron and I are going to sit down at 11 and see what this looks like.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Meg?
Yeah, thank you. So I understand you're working through this particular instance. In other industries, is this the route we take as well for, 14 months, 2 years? Is this similar or is this exceptional? Like, I'm just wondering if we're treating everyone with building code issues and compliance issues equally.
Mr. Chair, Assembly Member Zalatel, the original extension was for outside issues like landscaping. Those and the sidewalk amenities. At a certain point in the season, it has been customary to extend a following season because it's just too late in the season to get it done right. I think for some of the other issues, though, this does seem exceptional from my perspective coming in, but I'm relatively new, as I think you all know, and we'll talk about with Big Bend and Adams. But it has gone on for a longer period. In the perfect world, this would have been resolved before the original CCO or CO was issued. There would have been the paper depiction would have been accurate of what was out there. It would have been resolved before they went into business, and we wouldn't be struggling with the impact right now of doing what's necessary to balance the needs of the business and the community.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that was a good quarterly report. Usually they're a little briefer. That got complex and interesting. I hurried. I saw your hand up, but I think we should move on. This is kind of a light report, just kind of informing us of the various issues. I think, is that okay? All right. And we get to talk to you more tomorrow. So, are we ready to move on then? Any other comments on that? Okay, so I'd like to get on to Great Northern Cannabis. Who's here? Mr. Redden. Do you want to go ahead and sit up here? Was there someone else? Thank you, Jack. Okay, Mandy?
So this is Great Northern Cannabis. It's for a retail location. For the licensing review, their operating plan addressed all of the general licensing restrictions. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due by any of the licensees or affiliates. They also addressed all of the safety and security requirements in their operating plan. There weren't any comments from the health department regarding extra conditions. Their plan review was approved. All of the retail-specific license requirements were also addressed, and there's no additional conditions recommended for this license.
All right, thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a special use permit for a marijuana retail sales establishment within a B3 district. The site is located southwest of the intersection of East Street Road and Volker Street, and it's in the old Voodoo restaurant. The proposed establishment will be located within an existing commercial use building, which was formerly a restaurant, and approximately 2,232 square feet of available building space will be dedicated to marijuana retail. And this marijuana retail sales establishment will be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until midnight. The closest protected land use is the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission. That's a homeless and transient shelter, and that's approximately 1,138 feet away from the petition site as measured via shortest practical pedestrian route. There are no special conditions added beyond the typical boilerplate conditions that get added to all retail sales establishments. And this use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and the provided site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of a similar character, scale, or size when compared to surrounding structures. And the planning department recommends approval of the special land use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
All right, thank you. Questions, Meg?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about this one. I had received a couple of calls, and at the community council meeting, there was concerns that there was a religious assembly located within the same parking lot. And I don't know if that ever, I referred those concerning people with concerns to you. I don't know if they ever made it to you into if that's been resolved.
Ms. Salatel, those have been resolved from the planning department standpoint. I've spoken to those individuals, and we've made an informal determination that that is a social service facility. It's not a religious assembly. I've emphasized to the applicant several times, if you disagree with this, come in for a formal use determination and we can go through a formal process to come to that conclusion. They have neglected to do that. So as it stands today, it is a social service facility in our eyes.
Okay. And my second question is, did you get a MOU with Campbell Park Community Council? I know you were there a couple of times.
I've been there to 3 consecutive monthly meetings. They voted to issue an MOU, but I had not yet received it. So I think the intent is there by both parties to enter into the MOU, but they're slow to get it our way, I guess. So we have one. I mean, they voted to issue one, but I have not yet received one.
Thanks. I don't quite understand a religious use in the parking lot.
Yeah, so the Fudu restaurant, the old Fudu restaurant sits kind of here, and then back here is another taller building, and there's kind of alley or a small kind of secondary type road back there. And in that building, there have been claimed religious assemblies who operate as tenants in that building.
Actually, just point of clarification, it's not that building. The building with which the purported religious assembly are the persons who made that claim. We're not in the building that sets back sort of away from Tudor. It's the commercial building that is 2 buildings over. So it is a shared parking lot, correct, but it's not the building which was actually used as a church several years ago. It's more of like, it's a business setting, or business commercial building where these persons were tenants, or are tenants.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, so on the map, which building would that be? The map's on page 12.
Yeah, so if you look at petition site
This one?
there.
Right there.
Does that answer your question?
Got it. Right here.
This building.
So this is
This used to be, but it's not any longer, and this building, commercial building, shares the parking lot with that old building.
All right. So I had a question on that too. So because this is an important issue, this religious uses, where are they? They can be hidden. And in this evaluation, you have the rescue mission as the closest, but it's not far enough. But there's one you can, I think, see from this location, the Joy Christian Center, and they changed their name recently. It's right on the corner of Tudor and Laurel or something.
There's are you speaking of the Baptist church that's associated with the university?
No, it's right on Tudor. It used to be Joy Christian Center. Now it's Joy Hope or something. But that's been there for many, many years.
Mr. Chair, I believe I know which facility you're talking about, and when I did the measurements, that was beyond the distance that the Gospel Rescue Mission is. So Gospel Rescue Mission is still the closest.
Oh, that was closer. When you go to Gospel, how did you walk it?
So Tudor Road is a major arterial, so based upon the criteria that we had developed a few years ago about how to measure towards practical pedestrian, you have to go to a signalized intersection. You can't go to any intersection, so you actually have to walk down to, I believe it's Piper.
Okay, see what.
All the way down to Piper, cross Piper, and then walk back and get to the front door.
Okay. And I was a question. I looked. I think the distance was fine, but it wasn't on this list. And on one page, it's fairly extensive on 28 of 470 different uses, and that one wasn't on there. It's pretty overt, and I'm just worried that, obviously we don't want to trip over that stuff. So I mean, how do you search it? Sometimes you go out there to the site, you measure. You used to. Do you always do that now? Or are you doing Google Maps or something?
The majority of the reviews can be done just at a desktop computer. If it's something that's questionable, I'll definitely go out. We have a little measuring wheel, and I'll actually walk it, measure it back and forth several times, and then whatever ends up being the shortest measurement is what I go with.
So, do you know if Joy Christian Center shows up on your maps as a religious? Because you have the maps online that show the difference.
I believe it does.
It does. Okay. I just want to verify that. We want to not miss those as much as possible, and I know they get hidden in strip malls and so on. It'd be a real
Right,
challenge.
and if I could just give some clarification to the religious assembly that's in question, or social service facility, I should say, it's a counseling service. It's a faith-based counseling service. So that's why we came to the determination it's a social service facility, because the primary operation is a men's sex addiction counseling service.
All right, thanks. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So the primary use, so you didn't find multiple primary uses? Because I know that that's been something where you could have multiple uses of, I don't know. So I'm really fuzzy on this. The further we jump into what constitutes a use and the primary use and a use determination, the less clarity I seem to have. So can you just kind of walk me through exactly, like, you learn of the potential use, you inquire? Like, can you just walk me through it? I know that sounds
Sure.
really basic, but I just
Sure.
really want to get a sense of how this works in the mechanics and kind of what's the inquiry and the like.
Sure. So Ms. Salza, planning department, we can only make a determination based upon the information that's available to us. In this case, we had a website run by the establishment that we had a description of their operations, meeting locations, hours of operation. We had a lot of information to go off of. We also had a description of the business that was provided to us from the concerned individual that stated that they were more closely aligned with the social service facility in their own words. And along with that too, you know, this building is a large commercial building that does have multiple suites within it. So, you know, there's other nonprofits, there's other businesses that occupy space within that building. So that's how you can have, getting back to the question about multiple primary uses, that's how you would determine there's multiple primary uses to that building, because there are different uses that could occupy that space.
And during that time, during your inquiry, did you get any information that they were holding any kind of religious service, this particular faith-based organization that provides the counseling?
That was not communicated to me through any of their correspondence.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we do have to roll because we got Ben and Adams, and we got one other license here. Go ahead, Mr. Redden.
Yeah, I would just like to add that this faith-based men's counseling service, to my knowledge, the actual owner or operator of this facility wasn't the one making the claim that they were a religious assembly. It was the pet cremator that is also in the facility that was making this claim. And his question on multiple occasions to me was, if there is a faith, or if there is a religious assembly in that building, or if the men's counseling service would be found to be a faith or a religious assembly, would Great Northern Cannabis be willing to buy them out of their tenancy? While I do understand that this is a very important issue for the community in determining, these protected uses, in this particular circumstance, I think the issue of whether or not this counseling service was a religious assembly was more financially based, sort of motivated on behalf of that applicant. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this was something that we talked about from the very beginning when we first formed the Marijuana Committee almost 5 years ago. And we knew that, when we were going to set up different areas that were going to need to be separated from these businesses. And so we talked about having to come up with some sort of definition of church or a religious facility or faith-based thing. And you know, we were actually surprised at the wide variety of, you know, different types of religious assemblies or institutions or whatever you want to call them. It's, you know, in the old days, it was the big, gigantic church with the steeple on the corner, but it's not like that anymore, and so that's what makes it a little more challenging to get a determination on this.
Great, thank you. Anything else on this? Okay. Any recommendation from the committee? Chris, how you doing?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm just not quite prepared to lay them out on this topic, and it's not germane to this licensee. I think that they're a good operator, and this use is outside of the measurable distance, so let's have a talk about what the definition of religious assembly is when that's the time.
All right, thank you.
You know,
Okay, any
I'll
motion
move
on
to
this?
approve.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
You got a second? Any opposition? All right, thank you. So you know how that goes. So on Tuesday, we'll bring this up. We'll mention that we discussed it, and then that we recommended approval.
Great. All right, thank you.
Tuesday. Okay, so next up is Alaska Cannabis Exchange. Mandy?
So I was out of town when the licensing review needed to be submitted, so it was not attached to this. In the review, we did find that taxes, fees, or fines are found due, so that does not appear in the current version of the AR. The clerk's office is doing an AIM with that information that will be on the addendum. So you will see that notice has been sent to the applicant. So that's that'll be a recommended condition added on the license. But from the review of it, the licensing restrictions were addressed in their operating plan. Their safety and security standards were also addressed. There weren't any additional comments from the health department for conditions. Their plan was approved. And all of their retail license restrictions were addressed in the operating plan. So it'll just be that taxes, fees, and fines will need to be paid prior to the issuance.
Mandy?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So this is a licensee that we had an email or two on, or at least I know that I did, relating to a number of potential violations. And is that spoken to anywhere?
Let's. I'm sorry. Is that a licensing thing, or is that? Can we go through and let Ryan do his thing, and then we'll hit those, Chris? Would that work okay?
Sure.
Because you may touch on those. And I would be curious, how much are the fees and fines?
So it's $250 for odor, but I'm not sure about the other ones. Is it across the board for?
I don't know. Sorry.
For fines and fees for marijuana infractions. I know it's $250 a day for odor, but I'm not sure about.
$250 when you go back to reposition penalties, it's $300 a day.
And the other, okay. But it may, there's a whole fee schedule set out for the different infractions.
Okay, well, let's go through Ryan's, and then we can get into that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request for a special use permit for marijuana retail sales establishment within a B3 district. And this site is southwest of the intersection of Spenard Road and Benson Boulevard. And the proposed establishment will be located within an existing commercial use building. Approximately 1,672 square feet of available building space will be dedicated to marijuana retail. And this particular establishment will be open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. until midnight. The closest protected land use is an athletic field within Arctic Benson Park, and that is located approximately 2,235 feet away from the petition site as measured via the shortest practical pedestrian route. The only special condition added to this special land use permit would be condition number 7, and that has been added to establish and protect the petition site's legal and feasible access to their business. Just due to the particular orientation of the lots in this area, they have to pass through an adjoining lot to access their business. Currently, both lots are under common ownership, but very unlikely. But there could be a situation where the underlying lot gets sold out from underneath them, and somehow access gets denied. This use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and the provided said plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of a similar character, scale, or size with respect to surrounding structures. And the planning department recommends approval of the special use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
All right, thank you. Any comments? Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, no, I just know that this operator was the subject of an email that detailed out what I thought was an inaccurate number of violations, and I would just love to understand where that information stands.
The email was inaccurate? Or
I think the email was inaccurate. It made a statement that there were, almost a dozen or 10 violations, and I went and looked through the documentation, and at least for the last licensing period, I didn't see that. I saw maybe a few for, I forget exactly what, I don't have it in front of me, but maybe they were referencing a different license by this operator. I just would like to know that the planning department or our staff, clerk staff, licensing staff has reviewed those.
Through the chair, the clerk's office hasn't had any NOVs. This is a new license, so they don't have any attached to this one. Off the top of my head, I don't recall if they have any for another one. I can get that information to you.
Okay, so this is a brand new license. Thanks.
I don't know. So this is taxes, fees, and fines for so it's delinquent 2019 property tax. So it's not in relation to the facility running. So for the taxes, fees, and fines review, we reach out to all of the different municipal entities that have any kind of fees that they receive for any of the licensees or affiliates listed on the application. And so anything, that's why you see the library fines. Anything that shows up as a pending or a past due fine or fee appears. So this is not in reference to the facility specifically. It's one of the licensees or affiliates that owes for 2019 taxes.
But I think we just had a discussion, but weren't there some odor violations that do have fees and fines? Jack, are you prepared to, are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of it.
That was just kind of a general statement.
I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you were saying specifically to this.
Okay, so if I might, I'm just looking at these. This is their, it appears to be their cultivation facility at 1805 and 1807 West 47th. And so I guess it's not really germane to the retail license, but it's certainly the same operator, and definitely want to keep the conversation so we see it as full a picture as possible.
Right, so Chris, I'm sorry, your point is, I think in the packet we have here, it said there were 4 NOVs for odor since October 2017, and you're saying that email said there were more, and you don't believe that's correct. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
The email had several listed. I think it was 9 or something, larger number. But I went through and I didn't see that anywhere for the licensing period.
Can we ask the applicant? So say your name so the recorder.
Aaron Ralph, Alaska Cannabis Exchange.
All right.
So at the time of writing the narrative, we had 4 notice of violations from AMCO over the course from 2017 up until May of 2019. We did get an NOV for a marijuana tax for $10.63 because we accidentally shorted them. And then I think we did get 1 notice of violation for odor in June or July. But other than that, that's, and there's been no fines or fees attached to those because we take care of them.
All right, thank you. Any other thoughts on that? Just a couple odd things jumped out. One is the packet. I think the staff report says it's 1,762 square feet, but elsewhere it says 1,512. And the issue there is, I think it's a 20% difference, and they have to come back. Or what was the trigger for?
Correct.
Okay, so you want to make sure. I would pick a number and make sure it's correct.
With the drawing should have the actual number of the square footage the architect would have
One would
measured.
think.
What's that?
One would think, but we got 2 different numbers going through the packet. And And then staff report says 9 a.m., and that's what Ryan said, but your thing to the state said 10 a.m. you'd open up. And is that a time can trigger if they're near residential or something? Okay. Some of these things you want to make sure they're clear and right, because if you change your operating plan, at some point you have to come back, and you don't want to have to do that for something that's just. So I would, if it's 9 a.m., I think we're good because that's what we're approving.
Mr. Chair, yes. So there is some criteria if you are within 500 feet of a residential district. I believe if there's any change to the hours of operation or lighting, or I think it's like a general operational characteristics. If they're found by the director to be adversely impact neighboring residences. So, a 1 hour change to their hours of operation. I mean, I can't speak for the director, but it's hard to say whether or not we would deem that to have an adverse impact to the residences, and then therefore require them to go back to the assembly for that modification.
Not hope. Okay. I'm just. I see these inconsistencies. All right, what's going on here? So, and you'd want to make it clear. So whichever it would be, and you may change at some point too. Brian, did you have more to add?
I do. Just a question for you, Mr. Chair. Where did you see in the packet the discrepancy in the square footage? The building plans show building area of 1,672 square feet, and the application states 1,672 square feet.
Page 80 of 132 says the 1,500, and then your lease says 1,500. So,
I'm very not aware of exact square footage.
Okay. You might just look at it and make sure. I mean, because we can change our resolution to match the 1,500 if that's correct, or if 1,600 is correct, we can just do it that. So you can do that later, I think, work it out. So, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 1,512 square feet is shown on the health permit application that was submitted to DHHS, or now it's Anchorage Health Department. None of and that was part of the state application. So the application submitted and the plan submitted to the planning department all state 1,672 square feet.
And that's the correct number?
That's the correct number,
okay,
as verified by the architectural drawings.
Okay. And point on parking, where you clearly have more than is required. It says 5 required, you have at least 10. And it says 5 may be used for snow storage at some point. And you say at one point you'll have up to 6 employees per shift. So in the winter you're short of parking spot, realistically.
Well, so actually we have a whole entire parking spot on the right side of the building that you can back right up to the building. So you can probably park 15 cars in there. So that's where the employees.
Okay, that's not shown on the plan necessarily. So, okay, just I think you meet the requirement, but a lot of times realistically.
It's on page 60. Parking, at 2 separate lots.
But those aren't part of this property, though.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, they are part of that property. Okay. Anything else on this? Your recommendation, Chris?
I'm supportive.
Sounds good.
We need a first and a second, I think. Recommend approval.
I'll recommend approval.
Second.
Okay. And Chris has got any opposition? None? Okay. All right, thank you. So, moving on, 10 o'clock. We have the last item is I think our periodic report on Bendon Adams progress.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll try and keep this to the time allotted. I'm Chris Schutte, Director of Economic and Community Development, not be Vanna White today. We're doing our quarterly update, a little later than normal, but quarterly update on the Bendon Adams report progress made to date. We have a couple of slides that just lay out, again, for some of our newer members, how we got to where we are today. The Bendon Adams report is actually a byproduct of a Kresge Foundation grant that we were awarded back in 2016. we were asked to participate in Drawing on Detroit, a national conference looking at the successful reinvigoration of that city in the various ways through economic and community development that they achieved those. So we pitched a project to Kresge and were successfully awarded a grant that then allowed us to fund the consultant group Bend & Adams to come here and lead us through that exercise. The Bend & Adams process for their report was a large-scale internal and external exercise looking at both the interior barriers that employees feel they experience when trying to carry out their duties, as well as looking, of course, at our customers and what are the impediments that our customers see. From the Bend & Adams report, we take the recommendations that are in there. It's conveniently laid out in sort of a short, middle, and long-term structure that helps us. And the reporting today that we'll do, that Bob and Michelle will do, builds off of that. This is just a slide showing that Bend & Adams report is not the only thing that we use when we try to improve the service delivery that we provide through our land use zoning and building functions. Bob is a big believer in both of those books, which I have read the checklist manifesto and found it very useful. I need to return that book to you, by the way.
And there is a TED Talk, so to start with why, if you have a millennial you want to educate on it too. Basically what those do is they take the Bend & Adams report, start with why, says, okay, Bend & Adams said how to improve the process. Start with why, make sure the process is one you want, and you look at why you are doing that process. If that process isn't designed to meet the goals of planning or safe building and construction, we shouldn't do that process in the first place. So Bend & Adams, and looking at that, you need to go back as you're going forward and make sure it makes sense you're doing the process and you know what the desired outcome is in terms of the big picture. The checklist manifesto is just a way to organize your process improvements so that it involves the right people, and it's consistent and predictable, so that a customer coming to us knows what to submit and they know how it's going to be considered to cut down waste all the way around.
So the Bend & Adams report is kind of broken down into two key subject areas: the what, and those are on your screen there, as well as the when, which I've already covered. We'll dive right into it and start with Michelle. Just tell me when to advance slides.
Okay. So we're happy to report that all of the items that were reported to kind of get done immediately have been done, and they're continuing to be ongoing. So in addition to not only having a planning director in the head of the department, we also have just a strong management team in general of all of the different groups that make up the entire department. Really going forward with getting code basis for conditions of approval, and so that's been one of the most important things that we've been working on. So what that means is not just in the planning department, but any department that is recommending a condition of approval for either a major site plan review, a conditional use permit, or any type of land use entitlement, that it actually has a code basis, that it's not just, well, I know the code says to have 5 trees and 10 shrubs, but I really want to see 20 trees and 30 shrubs there. You really have to have a basis either going back to code or to an adopted plan. We retooled our pre-application system. I think we talked about this last time, but started charging a fee. It's a minimal fee, it's $130, but with that, the applicant actually fills out a pre-application form and provides us a certain level of detail. Previous to that, we really weren't getting that. It was a very, I don't want to say informal, a lot of contractors came forward with a pretty formal application, but we were getting a lot that didn't, and what happened is that people stopped coming to the meeting because they didn't have all the materials there. And so this has really helped improve that. We're seeing a lot better attendance at the pre-application meetings, which means that the applicants are getting a lot more information before they come in with their application, so it's better all the way around. It also means that the people who end up reviewing that application, when it gets to them, has had the opportunity to have that meeting with the entire team and kind of they walk through the process for the applicant instead of seeing it cool. We're reviewing the process for implementation of long-range plans. I'll talk to that at the end because that's really kind of a big thing in that it's just how are we communicating what we are doing? How are we communicating to the public, to the assembly, to each other within the department that we're what we mean with the adopted plans and how are we implementing them? And then just quarterly code amendments meetings. Not only are we meeting with the Alaska or the Anchorage Home Builders Association on a monthly basis, we have a few key members from that larger group that we meet with on a bi-weekly to actually talk to them about what's happening, in real time with their projects. We also attend the Live Work Plays housing group, so that we're hearing from that industry as well. And then just anytime we're working, we're meeting with a developer, we're trying to say, how did the code affect that? And just kind of making that part of the dialogue that we're having. Next slide. So within 90 days, also very happy to state that we've done all these things and that we're continuing to do them. You're all familiar with Dave Whitfield, who's in the room, so he's our current planning manager. That implemented the revised pre-application process. I just talked about that. Understanding and communicating the long-range plan goals. In addition to what I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, one of the major things that we've done is we've started having members of our long-range planning group actually work at the front counter. So at least they're kind of rotating through, as well as our current planners. And what that's allowing them to do is interact with the folks who are trying to implement the codes and plans, and they're getting to have that conversation about the projects and understanding how the code is affecting development. And so they're seeing the real life challenges that when we're writing goals and policies, how they can better write those so that they're easier and more understandable to implement. And another thing that we're doing is cross-working with amendments. So when we're writing AOs and assembly ordinances and different revisions to Title 21, that used to be a function that was solely done out of the long-range planning group. Now we are teaming that. Sometimes it might be a current planner. Ryan wrote, I think, pretty much all of the marijuana ordinances. But if it is something that's being led out of the long-range planning group, a current planner is also working with them, as well as we're bringing in members from land use review, so from Bob's side of the house. So those are the people who actually interpret the code as they're coming through for building permits. So we're getting all those different perspectives, and we're finding that that's been very helpful. We haven't had any actual project charrettes as far as like we did the last time we reported, but what we have done is with the R2 district amendments and the R4A, we've been doing some in-house design. So as we're writing those codes, we've actually had planners who have gone through and not just looked at the code revisions that we're proposing, but going through all of Title 21 and seeing how would I make this development work and can I? And then working again with the land use review side of the house to say, how would you interpret this? Are we interpreting it correctly? And it's going a long way in understanding when we write code, is it being done in a way, are we over prescribing development, or is it being done in a way that people can interpret it and that can work? And that's been really eye-opening, and so through that process, we've actually come back and identified some different conflicts and different areas of change. So, and then just continuing to collect regular feedback. And I feel like that should be on every one of these, and just something that throughout all the processes that we're doing, that we're making a priority. So doing it within a year, I think we could probably say done on this. We're assessing the level of design requirements for applications. So we have been able to communicate our applications data that we want a 35% design when we're getting applications. That's more than concept, so you actually have thought out, will this development work? But it's not, that 65, 95% where you're getting closer to done. So yes, there's some amount of financial risk that you're putting into it, but I think it's reasonable so that you're getting the feedback from the planning department and the other departments that are reviewing this to really understand, is your project going to work, and has it taken into account all the things that need to be considered to not have an offsite effect. We have our staff reports out always a week before the public hearing, so it's not only available to the applicant so that they can see those conditions of approval, but also made available to the public. I'd also like to take a step back that not only are we getting the staff report out a week before, but as we accept the applications, once they're processed and have been issued a case number, we are getting them online and made available to the public so they can at least start reading the petitioner side of the request. A lot of times petitioners come to the pre-application, the community council meetings. They have 5 minutes to give a presentation. They're giving a very high level without kind of the details that are in the application. So that gives the public the opportunity to really read the nuances in that application. And then we're trying to get our kind of staff report out there a week in advance so they have time to read any other perspectives on that case. And then also see if it's being recommended for approval or denial. Staff training program, a lot of that, we're really making monies available so that staff can attend the American Planning Association Planning Conference, or any other that's relative. Last year, Ryan went to the Marijuana Symposium. We have different people. We have people going to traffic demand management or modeling training this year, and preemptively for a major study that we're going to be doing. And then also just what we're doing internally with the cross training has done a lot in staff training. And then the last thing was just assisting the assembly, and I think that we're doing that as we come to the CEDC. And I think this group has actually provided a platform for us to do that, and so thank you. And that's it. Now you can.
Actually, you have your last slides here.
Oh yeah, these are my last slides. So kind of just talking about the work program and kind of what we're doing. And so I think that this, I also printed these out so that you each have a copy, and I also gave you the handout for a project that we're kicking off with the Our Downtown project. But this is just an example of not only what we've accomplished and what we are continuing to accomplish and what's coming before you all, but just some of the collateral that we're producing, that we're going out to the Federation of Community Councils on a more regular basis to present this to them. So this is kind of an update on what are our upcoming projects and ongoing projects, with descriptions of what they are and what kind of areas, larger areas to the comp plan do they tie to. Next slide. And this is actually an update. This is pulled out of the 2040 plan. This is what Tom Davis always refers to as the Skittles chart. And so this really identifies what are the types of actions that we need to accomplish in the near term, and then it ties it back to the policies. This is the plan was adopted almost 2 years ago. We've already completed 7 of our near-term action items. We have 11 in progress and 12. And when I say in progress, that's significant progress that you will be seeing them. They're either out the community engagement stage, or they're already going to planning and zoning. And then we have 12 where we've kind of started the research and the framework for the scope of what that project is going to do. So, and I think this just demonstrates, and this doesn't even get into the nuts and bolts of all the applications that staff takes in and the land use reviews and the use determination. So I'm particularly proud of this chart because I think it demonstrates how much work is being done.
Michelle, let me just add to that. For those of you that don't remember all of the great detail I went into in your 15-minute Land Use 101 exercise, I showed this. The color coding, it tells you which agency is the lead agency. The numbers inside each of the Skittles, the tasty Skittles, ties back to your 2040 plan and specific actions called out in that plan. So if you need to reference, figure out what a 2-2 is, pull out your copy of the 2040 land use plan or look it up online, and it's in the back in the actions the actions and implementation section.
Yeah. And I just, if I can say one more thing to kind of just brag about the planning department, but the other departments, if you notice, those are the green Skittles. We have a lot of those that are complete, and I think that that's significant because that demonstrates how much the planning department worked with the other departments to make sure that the items that they were, the action items that they were identifying were part of their work program and their commitment to getting that done, and not just putting action items in the plan for the sake of putting action items in there. So not only have we done a lot, but other departments have as well. So this is just also a graphic kind of trying to help the public understand what are the steps in the different ordinances that we're putting through, so they understand there's initial review where we're kind of opening them up just for public comment before we create our public hearing drafts. A lot of times that involves going out to the community councils, and then we've been starting all of our new ordinances with what industry lunch and learn. So we reach out to the Homebuilders Association, Woodward Clay, the A&E firms, architectural and engineering firms in the community, and we just invite them over to the training room and we have a kickoff and we say, this is the project we're starting. We get interest, kind of weed out who's really going to be interested, and a lot of times we develop technical advisory committees from those lunch and learns of people from the industry that end up being part of our team in writing the drafts. And then, then explaining that it goes to planning and zoning and the assembly. And this is just one of our 2019-2020 project timelines. This again doesn't account for all the stuff that's going through current planning and into planning and zoning that doesn't make it to you all, but this is the stuff that you're going to start to see in the very near future. I'm happy to go through this, but I know for the sake of time, maybe Bob can go through his.
Let's transition over to Bob, if you don't mind.
Okay, so as you look at the checklist up there, the starting point I would emphasize is when you check off something, continuous improvement means continuous. You can't just say done and ignore it. The day you quit focusing on making your organization get better and better is the day you start falling behind on doing what it needs to do for the anchored residents going forward. Probably one of our more exciting areas was uninterruptible work. We changed the hours at the building permit counter to start at 9 rather than 8. All the permit techs still come in at 8. From 8 to 9, they do nothing but all the electronic filings they got from the day before and all the paper things that needed to be done. Previously to that, they were doing it during the day, multitasking. As a result, we'd have customers standing in line, but permit techs still having to do electronic work from the day before. Multitasking made the customers wait longer. It made them less effective at what they needed to do with that processing. It was exciting when we first implemented giving them that extra hour of do nothing but the electronic and paperwork side. I eliminated the routine overtime that happens every summer in the permit tech section. Unfortunately, I'm down one permit tech now, and I'm incurring some overtime costs, but it's less than what we would have had without it. So I think it's what we already had for the plan reviewers. By moving it to the permit techs, we improved going forward. You saw the reference to the submittal checklist before. The checklist is important. That way, when we publish that and we agree on what it is, before somebody comes in, when somebody has a project, before they bring it in, they give that to their engineer or architect, or who actually knows to look for it, knows, in order for me to successfully file, these are the things I need to address. When they do that, it saves, we don't have to write the comments, wait for them to respond to it, and go back and forth. It saves us time. It also saves the builder or developer time and money because they know what's needed on the front end. The drainage policy is one that used to be called policy and procedure number 5 under, when it was under PM&E, is one we have out for 30-day review right now. It's exciting because for both building an individual lot as well as a subdivision, it lays out what the requirements are in an area. There have been ideas to improve it since 2012. It's needed desperate revision since 2015, and we have that out there now. We think that will considerably ease the process for doing some of those big developments. Walk-through applications, we need to get on with electronic. Walking through is nice, but really to get more effective and time-saving, we need to spare the builders and contractors the need to come down here and do things that they should be able to do online. I've been dragging a lot of folks getting them out there on inspect-alongs. Michelle, as well as the mayor, the building, I go out regularly, the city manager, and it's invaluable. Michelle talked about how their comments have to be code-based. Because I used to be in the military, we had to use an acronym to say the same thing, and that's that reference to Iraq there, which means when somebody writes up something, they have to say what the issue is, what the rule is, i.e. the code provision, how you apply it, and what the conclusion is. If there's an attorney in the recovery in the room, they probably relate with it too, as you see there going forward. Next slide, please. So you filled my position, and hopefully that's not an ongoing thing. You'll keep me here a little longer. But in terms of feedback, we talked about the AARs before. I've also gone out to sites of major remodels to talk about what worked, what didn't during the plan review process as well as the inspection process, meeting to understand those better. When you see our newsletter come out this next week, I hope you're all signed up for it, you're going to see the announcements there for the fall lunch events. These are events that are focused on contractors, builders, developers, each a separate group, to talk about issues about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the last building season, what they liked about the service we delivered, what drove them nuts, and what we absolutely have to fix now. We're doing that deliberately after snow comes, the right-of-way closes, and things slow down because you can't get contractors and builders to lose that time in the middle of the day in building season, which is why we started to wait on that in order to get that feedback there. I've also started meeting with different stakeholder groups, one AHFC sponsored, the Real Estate Investors Club, a couple of brokerages, to talk about their perceptions of the permit issues out there, the building safety issues, and what they would like to see to address them. We looked at our longest poll, our longest processing step in plan review time, which was structural. We had a long vacant position, which we went ahead and filled. We're continuing to find other ways we can improve the process. Sorry. And we just got the flash up message. I think this would be the appropriate time if we wanted to drop cover and pull down.
I say the building's shaky. Were we as fast as the school district?
Probably not.
No damage, anyone?
Is it over?
So the Great Alaska earthquake was about 3.5 minutes, 1,000 times stronger than the one we had last November. I will defer to the assembly to determine when this one's quick.
Do I have a motion for a shorter?
Yeah, it's going to take us longer to get up.
Thank you.
I was worried for your safety. You took a picture, right?
While you were braced in the doorway.
I would thank the assemblies for supporting the safety program of the Permit Center. Getting back on, another area we were hitting needless churn was when a fire plan review was necessary. This primarily impacted development in Eagle River or the hillside on driveway length. And we pretty much set upon some hard rules there that we do not have to go through the time of a fire plan review. Next slide, please. Looks like the last one.
It's not working anymore.
Air.
The earthquake must have.
Oh, probably because I'm getting all these IT messages here. All right, sorry, Bob.
Okay, so there's some things we're doing together. The AARs must be after action reviews must be a continuing issue to look at. Coming to this building in February, it struck me as a Byzantine bureaucratic maze for trying to find who was where in it. It's important our processes aren't. We're finding out and we're continuing to investigate where those co-locations make sense because you want people working, say, between fire plan review and structural review. That's why they're next to each other. And where we have isolated or created disconnects. I'm moving 2 offices for better cohesion to improve the turnaround time and processing for private developments is an example of what we're doing in that area. I think another exciting area is those cross-functional teams Michelle alluded to also in terms of what we're doing to be more effective. You can either have silos of emptiness in your decision-making process or you can integrate across the different entities in this building, all which have important equities and policies going forward. And I think it's impressive the amount of time we have those cross-functional groups addressing the different issues out there. The technology applications out there, we've put a deliberate plan in place for, and we did do Jack, we executed without you on the earthquake. So, but we have Infor as our permit management system. We've instituted monthly sessions to talk about what we can do to improve it and make it more user-friendly for both the staff as well as the public. GIS is an underutilized tool. We're continuing to find new ways to make it more effective for sharing information with the community. E-plans is an electronic means of providing building plans rather than the traditional paper rolls. It's an area that we continue to find ways we can improve it to make it more user-friendly. It's not a 100% solution by a long shot to paper rolls yet, but ultimately it has to be our future. Next slide, please.
I think it's a little bit slow, sorry.
Okay. So I think one of the major things when you fill both the leadership positions, you have a much greater emphasis on not just day-to-day keeping your head above water, but looking at where the organization is going to go. What?
Is that okay? It did advance finally.
Oh, okay.
I think you asked too.
Yeah. So that focus on emphasis is there. We understand better what our technology is. That last one, though, Ben and Adams talked about better understanding of cross-department roles, which, frankly, I think was a deficient finding. What you needed was a focus of effort, not to understand what each other do, but work better together. That's why Michelle has her staff going to our land use enforcement officer meetings. Our right-of-way consistency meetings are also include people from traffic. We're getting the right people in there for the programs that overlay each other to overcome make sure our policies are consistent. One complaint you see throughout the Ben and Adams report are complaints that somebody came to the building to do something. They had to weave that maze I talked about before, both in people and programs. That's a foul. We should be able to provide that answer and have that information coherent, consistent, and worked out beforehand. The other way we do that are frequent use of internal meetings now that weren't done before we meet with applicants on something. So if we have different policies or regulations or code issues to be centered or to be synchronized, they don't have to experience the full brunt of the sausage making. They can see something that is going to be more consistent, so they don't have to watch two departments play ping pong with an issue and just get confused watching it.
One thing I'd like to add to this too, in addition to what Bob said, is just that for those of you that don't know it, every Wednesday in this building we actually have a director's meeting. So every director in this building, and including we meet with Chris and Bill Falsey, and we also bring in Parks and Rec, purchasing, HR, and that gives us all an opportunity to talk about what's on our plates. And it's amazing each week, even as communicative as we are just offline, that week how much we are able to also catch and say, oh, we need to bring parks into this or traffic into that, and it's just been a great forum to really make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and that we are being consistently working together.
Excellent. So we talked about priorities there. Staff development needs are an area we continue to analyze how to do it, and without asking for a separate line item for a training budget that, frankly, I don't think we can afford. Some of the things in regards to an acute need, we did go ahead and provide training on state stormwater regulations and laws to avoid the DEC penalty box, and started with the private development and other staff to make sure all those who touch drainage and stormwater issues understand the state requirements we need to meet there. I've also worked on a mentorship program to better improve an understanding of private sector needs in private development, so my staff working in that area understands, well, it's nice to have this community requirement to do something, but realize there's no way you can afford for the project to go forward if you do that. So where's that middle ground where you find it? Also, AHFC has been a great mission partner for providing free training in structural and fire issues, and they're a tremendous resource to partner with, I have to say, in that area.
We've also been taking we've been using them as well to take our codes to talk to them about, are we somehow running in code something that wouldn't be able to be financed, so we're getting their perspective on that as well.
And the interpreter missed the name of that organization?
AHFC is the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation.
Thanks.
Right. That's it.
So I think we're ready for the questions of the assembly, and you have 6 minutes left.
Thank you for being brief. This could be a full meeting discussion, I would think, so sorry to squeeze it down. We'll have to make a note of that for the future. Any comments, questions? Chris? Did you leave us, Chris?
This will be under the table.
Dean?
I did see a few new positions being added, and I just wondered if how that has affected the department's planning and development services budgets, and is that reflected in the 2020 budget or?
So for planning,
can I start with that?
Yeah.
So Dean, 2 of the slides in there referenced what used to be vacant positions that existed. Bob did not exist. And then there was a lack of having a current planning manager position. Those were funded positions; they just were vacant positions. Those vacancies had downstream effect on our ability to do our jobs, deliver our services. So those were singled out very early in the Bend & Adams process by both internal participants in it and the external. That you have to fill those positions in order to help us keep things flowing smoothly. So those are positions that were filled. Now in Bob's side of the house, there has been 1 position added since the time of the Bend & Adams report, but that was directly related to the Assembly's appropriation for additional nuisance property work. So
the structural engineer position?
That was vacant.
That was a vacant one.
Oh, that was vacant. And then the permit technicians from that was also
it's a vacancy. Yeah.
Pete?
Thank you. So have the home builders, have their response to these potential changes been positive? Do they think we're headed in the right direction, or what have they been telling you?
I'll just speak. We just recently met with the Home Builders Association just to talk about some outstanding pending issues and had a great dialogue, and then had just a kind of candid conversation with them about what else. And they just said, you guys are doing great, and they felt like we really are kind of getting forward with kind of getting out of that realm where they feel like planning is the hiccup. Not to say that means that they think they are. I just specifically wanted to know the planning, how we were doing, and it was very positive feedback.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I add something to that? And Bob touched on it in one of the slides. We have mechanisms for collecting customer feedback. There is a kiosk in the general permit area specifically dedicated to customer feedback. So if you come in and you work with a permit tech or you work with a reviewer and you have a great experience, you have the ability to say so. As you can imagine, those are more rare than I had a really bad experience, I want to tell somebody about it. But we certainly are interested in that feedback loop. I think that having that kiosk was a good start. I don't think it does enough. And so one of the things that Bob's talked about a lot is how do we improve that customer feedback.
Okay.
Thank you. On the public side of things, this is where I get the most interaction, especially on planning and understanding the process.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if some version of kind of the things that go where there is public interaction could go to an FCC training, and if there's any opportunity for that same kind of customer service feedback loop to exist from the public side.
Yeah, definitely. It's something we're thinking about a lot. John brought this up. I think we talked about this maybe 5 or 6 months ago. And it's, yeah, I continue to think about it. So I think that we have a challenge because I know that a lot of people want to see the planning department there for specific cases. And there's a lot of reasons why we can't go with specific cases. But in that vein, I think that we do need to give a better outreach and education to each community council so they understand that when a consultant comes out and they're talking about their project implementing the land use plan, what are they really saying? And maybe to help them understand just globally what it is that we're trying to do and what applicants are trying to do, so that when they see that the planning department is supporting something, that they understand we're supporting it because it's based on adopted community plans and not just because we really like Brand X and we want them to get this rezone. And I think that there's some misconceptions and we definitely can work on that. That's something I'd like to tackle this winter as we slow down and kind of get some of the building stuff and all the applications, but it's definitely on the forefront right now.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah.
So, similar to what we did with you all with the Land Use and Zoning 101, that's something that benefits, I think, community council members. And it's something the department, long before our times, used to do.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge. The community councils change almost faster than we do.
Yeah.
And so the people that were getting trained and understand what a rezone entails, they're off the council for whatever reason, and then you have a new crop of people who aren't educated. I do think, though, that we could take some form of the Land Use and Zoning 101 to the FCC, allowing the councils to send people there maybe once a year for a training of that kind, but going to the specific councils, or at least educating council members like they used to, it seems like it's not practical because there's too much churn at the council level.
Something that I have thought about, though, I had the opportunity to sit in on something at the Seed Lab, and it also came to my attention that there's like a lot of young professionals, just this kind of this new, the generation before the millennials, that they have this desire to have a very specific kind of community. And as they were talking about what they wanted, I finally had to pull out my map. I didn't want to be the person that came with like preconceived notions, but I finally had to pull it out and say, we have an adopted land use plan that kind of guides us to that. And so I pulled my phone because I pulled it up on my phone. And I realized that there's also this market that maybe we keep focusing on the community councils, but maybe we need to get out to the downtown, the young downtown Rotary group. There's like a young professionals group of that organization. And we have an annual American Planning Association Alaska chapter conference. Maybe doing something where we invite the community to it. We have the ability to do something on a Saturday or a Sunday. Maybe hosting something that we invite the public to. But maybe because of Chris's points about the changing in the community councils, and honestly, some people are disenfranchised with their community councils depending on what kind of interactions. So I think we also need to start getting out to other avenues to open it up a wider net.
And I just suggest maybe some kind of flowchart or fact sheet for how the process works. I've been on the FAQ page. It's fine. It's narrative, but maybe a visual, like this is the process. You can provide comment here, and don't forget it all is related to this plan or the plans located here, because that's what I'm scrambling around to find to help guide people.
Maybe as we go forward, would you have an interest if we kind of bounce some things? I know you're busy, but you seem to have a really good interest and eye for this. Could we maybe say
What are you thinking?
Sure, I'll volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. We're closing pretty quick, and I know we got other stuff, other meetings lined up. Francis?
I answer a lot of questions for the planning department, questions from the public. And one of the things that I've noticed is sometimes members of the public get confused when there's multiple applications on the same property, because they're like, there's 3 signs up, there's 3 things. I'm confused because it's more than just one thing, it's 3 things. And I think that that's sort of result, sometimes a proposed rezoning will spur development, and so there may be a rezoning, there may be a comp plan amendment, there may be a subdivision, and there may be a conditional use amendment, there may be multiple applications, and it is complex, and I think that sometimes leads to questions. And I've been able to spend time talking to people on the phone to answer those questions and to clarify what's at issue and what they're asking for and the reason behind it. And that's not always, really possible through, like, I can just summarize it. This is what you need to know. This is what would matter to me if I were you. And I just think that it's just hard to get it if you're a passive, resident that sees a sign or is interested in property, but it is kind of complex and hard to figure out without talking to somebody.
Very briefly, and our mind is 30 seconds. Thank you for the report. It's actually very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be back again in the first quarter of 2020 to do the last quarter of 19.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.